this morning. Today we are issuing a release of the report of the investigation relating to the May 24th, 2014 incident in Purcellville that resulted in the loss of life of a 17-year-old young man. The report that we're releasing today will be made available to all of you right now, and it will also be made available to the public on the county's website. The purpose of this is not to talk about what could have been done, what should have been done, what can be done. The purpose of this today is to discuss what did occur and how those facts are applied to the law in Virginia. I'll walk through briefly the report in summary form. It goes through the list of the general synopsis of the facts, the responding agencies that were involved, the list of all of the evidence collected. I do want to recognize and thank those that were involved in the investigation with the state police, and that conducting oversight was Captain Dave Purcellville. Behind me, Division Commander of BCI State Police, Lieutenant Drake McKay, as well as Special Agent Fleur. Also overseeing much of this review is my Chief Deputy Nicole Whitman, who is also to my right. The report goes through a synopsis of the facts that were gathered by the state police, summarizing all of the information and data that was collected from the various agencies, a summary of the autopsy information, firearm analysis, statements of the independent civilian witnesses that were involved. There were 7 witnesses that had either had direct involvement or direct sight of this incident. They are referred to in this report by their initials to protect their privacy. They are only identified by their initials, their sex, and their approximate age. Following that, there's a summary of the law enforcement officers' statements, the 3 officers that were involved that responded to this scene. There is a section of historical information relating to prior contacts that the Purcellville Police Department had with this young man. And it concludes with a legal analysis of how these facts are applied. I don't want to go through all of the facts in great detail. I'll give you a brief summary of what occurred. The conclusion is, and then I'll take any questions. May 24th, Saturday, a little after 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Purcellville Police were dispatched to Fraser Drive regarding a subject with a knife who was threatening to kill himself. Later dispatch reported that it may possibly be a juvenile, age 17, that was in the residential area and possibly still possessed a knife. Officer Hood, as well as Sergeant Schreck and Officer Gibb, and Officer Dinkins were the 3 Purcellville police officers that responded to the scene. They responded to via different routes to the residence where the 911 call ultimately came from. Officer Hood via Fraser Drive. If you'll look to the first attachment, it gives you an overview of the immediate area, residential neighborhood. Look, there's two parts of Fraser Drive. The vertical one, you look at 103, that was where the dispatch call, where the 911 call was initially made. The young man was with friends in that home, had expressed some indication that he was suicidal, wanted to take his own life. At some point later, he removed himself from the room. His friends went to find him in the bathroom, inflicting wounds to his neck area with a knife. The struggle ensued with his friends. It spilled out into the backyard and followed down where they ultimately came in front of 219 Fraser Drive. You can see that on attachment 1. Officer Hood responded there. Upon his arrival, he sees the two struggling with the knife. There's blood that is visible to him. There's also a neighbor that is waving her hands, alerting him to where to respond to. When he gets out of his car, he hears her say, "He has a knife, he has a knife." And it's not within seconds after he exits his cruiser that the young man breaks free from the struggle with his friend and immediately goes at the officer. He goes toward the officer. The officer several times asks him to stop, to drop the weapon, words to that effect. He does have his firearm out at that time. The subject does not halt or relinquish the weapon. Officer Hood discharges 1 round. It does not stop the subject, and 3 more rounds are discharged. You'll look to attachment 3. You see the location of Officer Hood's car. It's the one with the door open. Where he initially sees the two struggling is down at the end of that block near where you can see that gold car parked, and where you see the medical supplies is where he is eventually falls. It is apparent at some point that Officer Hood, while he's giving commands, is retreats 10 to 15 feet before he discharges his weapon. If you look at attachment 4, you can see that approximately where he retreated to, where we believe he retreated to, marked with an X in front of that black pickup truck. It is not visible. It's visible in other photos, and if you'd like, I can produce those for you. Right in front of that truck are where the shell casings were found. Based how their discharge from the firearm, we can approximate where his location was when he discharged the weapon. Based on the applying that to Virginia law, it's very clear that this is a situation where the officer was justified in his use of lethal force. He was faced with an immediate and real threat in that the individual had a dangerous weapon as defined under Virginia law, that which can cause injury or bodily injury or death. A knife qualifies, and it was, according to the law, a reasonable use of lethal force given that situation. With that, I will take any questions if there are any.
Sir, how much